This is about time of sale housing. If you're thinking of listing your house in the near future here in Bloomington, we do require a time of sale inspection on your house. It's not as in-depth as everyone thinks it is. Time of sale, we're really trying to maintain the housing stock that's in the city here. We're trying to fix anything that we deem as, quote, hazardous, and we address stuff that may be we label as a below minimum requirements. Those just mean that they don't meet the code, but it's not really going to hinder anything, and it's not a safety or a health issue as far as the way it's installed. So those are the two main things that we try to focus on: hazardous and below minimum requirements. With that, I've got a slide presentation. Houses that first are required to have time of sale inspection in the city here. According to our website, we've got it all listed on there, and we don't do multifamily structures, anything 4 or more units. That usually is a rental issue, and our rental department takes care of that, our housing. So anything under that, condos, townhouses, single family houses, twin homes, those will have time of sale inspection. So getting on, we look for smoke detectors. That's probably the most important thing that we look for. We want you to have a first line of defense to get out of your house in case there's a problem. So smoke detectors are required in every bedroom and on each level. So if you go into your home today and you find that you only have 2 smoke detectors, one on your basement and one on your main floor, go get some smoke detectors and throw them in your bedrooms. Manufacturer does have requirements on where to place them. You'll see by this little house detail down there. It shows bedroom, hall, bedroom. The black dots mean smoke detectors. You see another black dot on the first level where it says living room, dining room, and it's right next to the stair. Good, perfect locations. You want to keep them within a route access to getting out of your house. Same thing with the basement.
When did this bedroom thing?
That's been in the code since 2000. Since 2000, that's been in the codes. It's been required. Previous codes prior to that, it's always been a level. You know, each level had to have smoke detection.
How about CO detectors?
We'll get to that. But to answer your question, CO detectors are required within 10 feet of the bedrooms or in each bedroom. That's the minimum requirement that the state does require for smoke or CO detection.
What kind of smoke detector should you put in the bedroom? Smoke detectors or ion detectors?
Doesn't matter. They'll all work. Smoke detectors are what the code requires. Ion detectors, it's an alternative. Be up to the jurisdiction having authority as to whether or not they accept that as a smoke detector or not. If it does the same purpose, we're okay with it. So that all gets to the wired in part really comes with whether or not you're doing a build out. Say you're finishing off your basement. You have access to your framing at that point. That is when you are required to have hardwired smoke detectors in that basement area. Any other areas that are already finished off just need to be battery operated at the very minimal. Like I said, if you've got access to the framing, great. If not, we only require battery operated. That's the minimum the code can ask for. Okay. So this is a carbon monoxide detector, a battery operated one. There's also the kind that you can plug in and they work off of power. They're all good. Another smoke detector. There's plenty of them out there. Location where we don't want smoke detectors is within 3 feet of a ceiling fan, the ceiling fan blades. You want the smoke to get to the smoke detector and not be blown away from the smoke detector. So the ceiling fan blades are kind of a hindrance when it comes to smoke detectors. So we always make sure they're at least 3 feet away. Again, here's our placement. You got bedroom, the hallway gets it, the bedroom gets it. Living room, you don't need it, but you want to have a smoke detector, you know, near the stairway in those areas. So you got stairway, kind of, bedroom. If you got any bedrooms in a basement, again, you're going to get a smoke detector in that. When we get into electrical issues, this is always fun. For some reason, everybody loves to do electrical, and I don't know why, but you're talking about the most dangerous part of the house, and we're going to electrical, but people like to do it. So I got a lot of pictures on here that are really good pictures that show what we deal with electrical. This is our handout for a grounding. This is your service ground from your panel box. Your water is one of your grounding features. So we make sure that you got a jumper that goes around the meter itself from copper pipe to copper pipe. And that goes back to your panel box. That underground copper wire or copper pipe that goes there, that is your ground for your panel. Open electrical, biggest items that we see, this is in an attic. We always make sure it's got covers on it, you know, and it's properly wire nutted, whether it's hot or it's not, because nobody knows one way or another. If somebody finds it and hooks it up, it could be hot and it could start a fire or electrocute. This is an adapter to one of the old style outlets. I don't know if any of you remember these, but these are those sliding plug outlets where it's a 2-prong, where you can plug in at any port on it. And someone started running some electrical outside of it, and that creates a shocking hazard. It's kind of dangerous too. So this was the dishwasher wiring that was just left undone. A lot of these pictures were taken during the downturn of the economy. We had people that were stripping their houses of everything they possibly could and then letting the house go. So a lot of these pictures come from that. But the wiring is still hot and it's just sitting there. You know, it's whether or not somebody comes in and monkeys around with it, gets shocked from it, or it could possibly start a fire if it's shorted out in some way. Broken outlet, we always get those fixed. You know how kids like to stick their fingers around outlets. This is where a junction box is needed. You can't splice outside of a junction box any wiring. This is an old system wiring that was done. They just tied the 2 wires together, put some tape around them. I don't believe this was even wire nutted. It was just tape. This was actually kind of humorous because I'd never seen this before. But someone actually cut a cord off of a hairdryer and wired their garbage disposal with it. So it had its own GFI built into the cord, but unfortunately it's not right for use with garbage disposal. And it's not right for use other than a hairdryer. So again, we always make sure our electrical is encased in a box and properly terminated. Disconnect box. This is a old panel box fuses, and can you see these? Am I in your way? Okay. The panel box that's up there, you know, they've left it all wide open, so anybody can just stick their hands in there and start monkeying around. Unfortunately, with that, it's one of those things that you touch the wrong thing and you could land on your keister and maybe a trip to the hospital. With the one with the circles, that's called double lugging. You can tell when something's been tampered with when there's more than multiple wires on one lug. That's not allowed by National Electrical Code or NEC requirements. It's always, you know, they always have to do a certain wiring detail if they're tying 2 things together and putting it on one lug, but adding 2 wires under one lug is not is not a requirement that we allow or like to see.
Steve, what do you mean by certification required? Is that if it has double lugging?
Yeah, well, when we see something like this and we know that it's been tampered with, we'll tell you that we're going to ask for a certification, which means that you get a licensed electrician to come out there and certify the system that it's been safe and that it's in proper working order. Nothing is overfused, nothing is improperly wired anymore. He's going to clean up the system for you, basically. That'll usually involve a permit. So this one's great. This one was incredible, and I can't tell you, I don't know how this house did not burn down and how somebody did not get killed in this thing, because that service panel could have blown up in their face. Could have been an arc flash right there. This is a meter mast from a 60 amp service. You can tell that because of the size of the pipe that's going up the siding there. The small skinny ones, they're always used for a 60 amp service. This was the service itself. They made it into a 200 amp service with about 3 different type breakers. It was still carrying a 60 amp, the wiring for 60 amp, not to carry wiring for a 200 amp service. The beauty part about this is everything in this house was electric. They had the hot tub, stove, AC, dryer, the general use outlets, the lighting. I think even the water heater, everything in there was electric. The only way this house managed to stay in working order was these people must have been cognizant enough not to use one appliance when another one was going. So that had to be a huge juggling act. When I saw it, I called our electrician over and I said, "Tell me what you see here, because I think I know what I see." And he was scared to take the cover off because of arc flash. But this could have easily blown up at him and that house could have burnt to the ground. That was one of those things that we got the whole service out there. We made them remove a few things, and they got a whole new service put in. And it was all upgraded to 200 amp service, I believe, because that's what the next buyer wanted. So we said fine. The upper corner here, extension cords. You see that? Oh, you don't have it on that screen. I'm sorry. There it is. Extension cords to garage door opener. Whenever you got a permanently fixed appliance, it has to have its own dedicated outlet. We don't allow extension cords to be used. They're just, extension cords are temporary use items. They're usually allowed for 90 days, and then you're supposed to roll them up and throw them out if they've been out that long. It's one of them things that you see it a lot. You know, at some point, is it going to hurt anything? More than likely not. But when we go to sell our houses here in Bloomington, we make sure that you've got an outlet for it.
Do you usually find this after people have moved out?
No. During a time of sale, we find it quite often while they're selling the house or before they're putting it up. It's been in there for years. So a lot of these things are, you know, they're really not hidden. People just look at them every day and they don't pay attention to it. They don't think twice about it. So it's not uncommon to find these. Getting into plumbing issues. I'll show you some right and wrongs, and we'll talk about backflow prevention in order to protect the water system. Atmospheric breakers, backflow prevention, that's what we're kind of looking at. These are 2 styles of backflow prevention. You got this brass one here with a little nut on the end. That one is for an outdoor spigot. There's spigots out there that don't have backflow prevention to them. They don't have that little round dial on the top. That's backflow prevention. They just look like a spigot. Those need backflow prevention on them, as well as the threaded spigot at your laundry tub. So a lot of A lot of people still have the older style laundry tubs and faucets in there. They don't have the new chrome faucets with the, the aerator in them. They're just the old style where you can hook a garden hose or a laundry hose to it, whatever.
I've got my hearing pieces turned way up. Can you increase up just a tad, please?
Try to. Otherwise, yeah, if you can move up, that'd be great. Thank you. Sorry about that. This other one is for a handheld shower. Handheld showers, when they go below the spill line of a tub, those are also required to have backflow prevention. So any pooling water that can come in there does not get introduced into the handheld shower and back into your water system. It's all about keeping the water clean for drinking and for your use. So these are just adapters that can go on. They serve the purpose of backflow prevention. No, you're actually not supposed to break off the nut. That's a common myth that everyone does. They're supposed to be there so that you can take them off during cold weather, put them back on during warm weather. The nut is just a locking feature. That's all it is. This is a spigot that does not have backflow prevention. You would see the little piece on top here that has backflow. That's a little round dial or a little round puck, gray or black. That's the backflow prevention or the atmospheric breaker that's built into these. This one does not have it. We get into some plumbing issues here now. This is, we don't just look for hazards. We look for what's labeled as below minimum requirements. So with that, we find a lot of things that are just really wrong, but it might not hurt anything, so we don't call it out as a hazard, but it's wrong. So this is, this thing has multiple problems. And I'm sorry this piece here is, this part is covering it, but you got first you got this is tied into two sinks, so it comes in here like this and it dives down. It shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have the S-trap again coming down there. You got an S-trap, and then there's also that pleated, I wish I had a pointer, but this here pipe right here is pleated pipe. That's flexible. It's not allowed by plumbing code use. And then you got electrical tape on the one fitting because it leaks. Well, at the time it's not really leaking. I can't really call it as a hazard, just below minimum. There's so many things wrong, I'm amazed that that thing drains.
How do you know it's not vented?
Well, that's the other thing with it too, it wasn't vented. Because the way the plumbing configuration was, there was no vent within the distance needed for that. There was no vent coming out the wall. There was no vent near the floor. So it's, with an S-trap, a lot of times it's a siphon trap. In order for water to go, water goes by gravity, so it'll keep siphoning until water is gone, which means that your traps dry out and you get to smell sewer gas. So if you really like the smell, by all means, great, but it's not my cup of tea.
That's a complete Jerry right there.
Yeah, I'm glad you noticed that. This is also an S-trap. So yeah, an S-trap. They just turned two traps upside down in order to make it work. Again, this one isn't vented either. This is going straight into the ground. There's no vent within sight of it. So a vent helps to drain your water out. So you don't get that glugging sound at the end when you hear it going glug, 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 glug. That's what a vent takes away, is that sound. It helps drain it out nice and clean and, in a rather speedy fashion in a way.
Can you use flexible couplings with PVC or black pipe? You mentioned
Those are Ferncos. Flexible couplings are Ferncos. Those are for underground use only.
even though they make them for
Just because they make it doesn't mean they can't sell it and use it. They are made for underground use only. So when you're talking above ground piping, you know, outside of the soil, you're talking about a full banded coupling, because you don't want movement in the pipes. When you get movement in the pipes, you get cracking that happens. The rubber dries out.
Full banded coupling still has the rubber glue in.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Okay.
This was great too. This was looks like they used either I can't tell if this was vacuum piping for sure, or if this might have been from like a salon type use. But they hooked on the hose there, and the piping inside the wall where the hose goes into, they just shoved the hose right in there and just ran it down inside there. So if they ever got a clog in that thing, it's just going to back up until it comes running out the wall. Innovation at its finest. Again, there's no trap on this, so you get to smell sewer gas coming up. You know, they just ran fittings and called it a day. I'm sure it drains fine, but you get the sewer gas. That's a hazard. The previous slide with the hose going in there, that was a hazard as well.
So since I don't know what to look for, if I smell sewer gas, that probably.
Sewer gas will smell like rotten garbage.
Yeah, so I don't smell that in my home.
Yeah.
It looks like it's all been professionally done.
Okay, so you see this piece here?
Yeah.
That's a P-trap. That always holds a water seal in it. Whenever you run your water and drain it out, the water goes through, and as soon as it hits the top there, it starts to drain out. As soon as the gravity, the water stops, it stops. There's always a water seal in that P-trap. That keeps your sewer gas down. So with this, they put it sideways. I don't know why they did this, but this is also a hazard. It's not doing its purpose.
So normally it goes up and down.
Up and down, not sideways.
That's not proper.
Not proper. Also a hazard.
I'm with you.
Here's some more stuff with backflow prevention a little bit. We kind of mix up the slides a little. This is in your toilet tanks. Do you see the size or the height difference between these two pipes here? So this is your flush tube, this is your fill tube. So in order to keep them, for the proper air gap, the one tube has to be lower. That little mushroom piece on top, that is your backflow preventer. That's got to be 1 inch above the middle tube. That's what we're looking for. We got our preventer at the bottom of the tank here. Technically, if we get anything that happens, say a main break or a water line burst or froze in your house here, that will siphon all the water that's in that toilet tank back into your clean water system. I don't know if you really want to drink that, but I sure don't. And I don't want to have to flush my lines out and try to get them all sanitized again after that. So it's just easier to put in backflow prevention that's correct. This was another good one. Okay, so this black pipe on the floor here, this was in a basement in a house where back in the day it was easy for people to throw in a shower, a freestanding shower above the floor drain, or just throw it in the basement, plumb it, run water to it, and run everything to a floor drain. Okay, well that's what was done here. One of those old metal showers. And they ran the piping in there, they picked up a sink, ran it into the piping, they picked up the shower, ran it into the piping, and they also put the condensate from the furnace into the piping, which you can't do. But that whole thing ran to the floor drain. So all your bathing water was running to your floor drain, all your sink water was going to the floor drain. Basically, you had a huge unsanitary condition just from that. Because most people's floor drains they don't work that well. They're clogged up from debris, sediment that just gets there from People sweeping their floors and maybe they sweep crumbs in there. It doesn't get cleaned out very well. So a lot of them are clogged up, and then you have standing water. Floor drain. These aren't that, they don't show up very good on these pictures, but I think here is the clean out plug on the floor drain, and this dark hole, wish I had a pointer. This dark hole right here is your clean out opening. We always make sure that that has a clean out plug in it, so for one, you can't get the sewer gas back up. Two, it also keeps anything that lives within the sewer system. You already know that there's probably, in the outdoor sewer systems, there's mice, there's other rodents and stuff that live down in there, and that's their way of coming up. They can get up into your homes. So we always make sure that those are closed up. They're for clean out only. Here we're getting into water heater temperature relief valves. The requirement for those is to have a temperature pressure relief valve within 6 inches of the tank. It's got to be on the tank within 6 inches, not in the piping outside the tank within 6 inches of the water heater. At this point, I don't know if you've ever, and I would love for you guys to do this at some point, if you go home and Google an explosion of a water heater. Google it and it'll take out your house. It'll go right through your roof. It's like a rocket going off. But that's what a pressure relief valve does. It keeps it from becoming that, a malfunctioning water heater. The valve will release and relieve pressure from it, but it releases at 210 degrees. So if it's not in the tank, it can't read 210 degrees. It's going to read the temperature of the air outside, or maybe the coolness of the piping in the water outside of the tank, not in the tank. So it's not gonna go. So it's a wrong installation. That's also an item we get fixed.
Up-to-date water heaters typically have that pressure relief thing built onto them?
Yeah, they do. It's the older water heaters that are still around in a lot of the Bloomington homes. Those things will last 30 years. And why am I going to change it if it's not broke? Well, a lot of times we make them change it because it doesn't have that temperature pressure relief valve. So they end up having to change it. New ones, they all have it in there. So you'll be hard pressed not to find it. Unless it's been adapted and jimmy rigged somehow that they don't put it in. So
Said something about 6 inches from the tank.
we don't want it 6 inches from the tank. It's got to be 6 inches in the tank. So as you see them, they're built either on the side or on top. And they're mounted to the water heater, and their little sensor is inside the tank, so it can read the temperature of the water. So
The ones like usually see here in Bloomington on the downspout on the outside of the tank, where the copper line running down to the ground.
yeah,
It's usually in that line.
yeah,
4 ounces.
yeah, that's a
it.
pressure relief valve. That's fine.
Oh,
It's on the side of the tank,
okay.
on the side of the tank or on the top of the tank. It's not down here. It's up at the very top.
Yeah.
Hand wells in a garage. This is another thing. Even wells, they still have to have backflow prevention to them. So it's still water system that you can potentially drink off of. We protect. You know, these hand pump wells, we've had a few of them out here. You still have wells in your basement sometimes. People turn them into irrigation. If it's got a spigot that, you know, they use it for drinking water, or maybe they tie it in so they can use it for drinking water, that will have backflow prevention to it. We will get that put on there, so that you can't get your well contaminated by, maybe you're using it for outside use for running fertilizers or something. You get that little fertilizer that hooks up to your hose and you start spraying your lawn. You know, you can get that contamination into there. So that's what the backflow prevention does. Another thing with wells too, we want to make sure that wells are separated from city sewer, or not city sewer, city water. So if you got your well tied into your water system, that will get separated. We want independent systems from the city water to a well water. Two different things.
Is it required to cap them when people move into homes?
Good question. That's
They should be capped when they move in.
it's not a requirement that you have to cap them unless you're not going to put them back into service. So if the well is non-functional and if you're not going to use the well or put it back into service and maintain it, then you got to cap it. If you're going to put the well back into service and use it, you can have it, but it's got to be separate from the city water system. No piping can be attached to the city water system.
Once they're capped, will they be relocated?
Good luck to you on that. You almost have to go and drill a new well. But here's the downside to it too. I mean, capping a well versus putting it back into service, a lot of times it's cheaper for the people to just cap the well than it is to put the thing into service and maintain it. Because that is a requirement by the state. And the state is the one that forces or has the regulation, I should say, to the different cities as to wells. So a lot of people, when they buy a house, they, you know, if a well is functional and in service and it's been maintained, people like it because they'll use it for exterior. But the minute it's not in use, they don't like it anymore. It's just a hassle for them. So most people just let them go and leave them be, and they're just trying to get rid of wells at some point and just say, you know what, if you want to be on city water, be on city water. If you're going to have a well, then maintain it. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear you say they have to be maintained, because in my naiveness, I think, oh, we got a well, turn it on, turn it off. But apparently there's other things that
Well, you got to always check them. I mean, you still got to, every year there's a check that you have to do with the well to make sure that it's in perfect and good working order. So a lot of people don't realize it, and a lot of people don't want to do that. So as long as we're at wells, this is an old well. This is the pressure tank here. That's the pump right back in the corner there. And again, if it's not in use, you can tell this thing's never been used. This thing's been sitting for over 30 years, not even touched. At that point, it's not even worth putting into service, because with a well, you've got the outside tube or the piping that's there, and you got a rod that goes down inside there, and that rod is already seized up and placed. It can't be broke loose or anything without destroying it. So, you know, you get a company out there and they work at it and work at it and work at it, and they get that rod out of there, and then they just fill it with either a neat grout or a bentonite, and that seals the well. So, and then they take the equipment and recycle it, throw it out, whatever.
All those pipes there, is that running specifically for the well? Or is
Yes.
that for,
That was running for the well.
so can they be removed?
Yeah, they can be removed. You just got to make sure of what it's going to. A lot of people will remove the portion of the pipes, and then they'll retie those pipes into the city water system, because they run to irrigation spigots on the outside of the house.
If you bought a house that had a well sometime in the past,
Yeah.
is there a way to check to make sure it was sealed?
Yeah, we do have the capacity here at the city to do that. Usually our environmental health will pick that up, and they'll tell you whether a well has been sealed or not sealed. All you gotta do is give a call or ask at the front counter. They can look it up.
Looking up through records somewhere?
Yeah, unfortunately though, the records only go back, I don't know exactly how far they go back, but they only go back so far. And the state was keeping records for a period of time, but you know, they weren't privy to every single well that got capped, and some got capped and the records never made it to the state or made it to the city, so you wouldn't be able to tell for sure. There is two different types of wells out there too. You got the ones where you see them inside here, and then you've got the outside wells that the tank is or it's not a tank, but it's got the motor and the pump outside, and it's in a big casing that's outside your house. So I mean, there's a couple different types of wells that are out there. We don't have sand point wells here. Those are shallow point wells, and we just don't have those. Our wells go a little deeper than sand point. Moving to gas lines. Flexible gas line connectors. New connectors out there you'll see. You can pick them up at any of the big box stores. You can go to hardware stores. They'll all be listed for use with gas. They'll have a marking on them that says this connection is for current gas use. We find a lot of these older connectors that are not allowed for use anymore because the listing has run out and they're made of a certain material that when they're moved, because they're flexible, they're moved back and forth a lot, they break, they crack. Those are the brass type connectors. The only connectors you'll see for gas, and again, these are appliance connectors. So these come in little bags, you can buy them, but these little bags, these appliance connectors, they're stainless steel. These have been approved for gas use to hook up an appliance without running a hard pipe to the appliance or whatever. So we try to get some of the old connectors out because they're old, they've been moved around too much. We don't need a gas leak coming into a house. We don't want explosions happening here in the city. This is a stainless steel flexible gas line connector. That ANSI Z21.24, that is the listing of that gas connector that allows it to be used. It's been tested, it's been moved around many times, thousands of times, made it through the listing, they get the stamp of approval. That's one of the old ones that we say no to. That's called a brass craft. It's an old brass connector, still gray in color. You can find the new ones still gray, you can find them in yellow, you can find them in black. But they don't sell any of these other ones anymore. So when we see these, we get them out. You see how right there, you see that little twist in there? I hope you can make it out in the picture. But that's been twisted this way, and you can tell it's been diminished in size. Stainless steel won't do that. This whole thing has just been removed and taken out of there. Open gas lines, definitely we make sure that anything that is not hooked to an appliance is sealed with a cap. All it takes is one person to just nudge that little valve on it and you got a gas leak going there. If no one's in the house for a long time, that's gas buildup. One flick of the lights could start that thing and ignite it. So we make sure it's all capped, even if it's not in use. If it's in use, we're fine. If it's not in use, it's going to be capped. This was a kind of an intriguing one that I saw, which I'm kind of, to be honest with you, I don't know what the person was thinking when they did this, but they took and tied the plumbing and mechanical venting together and ran it out through one port in the roof. This is a plumbing stack, this is a vent stack. Vent stacks have to go through your roof independently. This here, they tied this corrugated pipe on, and they tied it in with this other corrugated pipe, and that was running to the bath fans. So they tied them all together. Basically, we can't allow that. The vent stack for the plumbing has to go out again. This is your main stack right here, which is fine. This was an additional vent stack for another venting that had to be done. So we got rid of that mess, made them do it right. Everything's fine and dandy now.
Can I ask a question? The previous slide that you had there was a gas valve. Behind the stove, you have to have a valve. Can it be down in the basement? You have to be within so many feet of the appliance?
Technically, yes, 6 feet of the appliance.
Right to the floor, and you gotta go down the basement, and it's right within 2 foot of the appliance.
Yeah, no.
Stairs.
No, the 6 feet isn't measured vertically like that, because in order to do that, you'd still have to go all the way down and around, and then down just to shut it off. The 6 feet of the appliance is made so that if there's a problem there, you pull that appliance out and click that valve off, right there, right Johnny on the spot. Not 50 paces later and, you know, finding your way through the maze. That's the requirement.
Is that legal? Here in Bloomington?
It was legal at one time. It was part of the code. We do allow it. We see it. We allow it to stay as long as they haven't done anything to upgrade it. You know, when you build or when you take a permit out and you're going to move your kitchen now, you're going to move your appliances. Say they were on that outside wall and you want to center them more as an island or something. And you move your plumbing and your gas and all that. That's when your valve is going to be brought in by that appliance. So anything like that will be updated. Okay. We're getting close to the end of the slides. This is a furnace installation inside of a garage. Can anybody see what's really wrong with this? Would you really want this furnace in your garage like that? Okay. For one, you've got it sitting on a couple of cinder blocks. What happens if you hit the cinder blocks or you hit the furnace? Won't that thing come crashing down and you break the gas line on it? And since your car is gas and it's also powered by electric, don't you think you'd have an explosion that could happen there? There's a lot of this that we see out there. You know, it's not as prevalent as it used to be, just because a lot of it has gotten cleaned up, but there's still people out there that like to do it. So we try to make sure that it's safe. If you're going to put a furnace in a garage, it has to be raised 18 inches off the floor. It's got to be secured. Gas line that's going to be to it is going to be secured. The electrical is going to be proper. The whole 9 yards, it's going to be vented properly. You want to heat your garage? We're going to do it right. There's plenty of heating methods out there. You don't have to put a furnace in there. And we get into structural issues. This is a deck that was supported on a foundation wall. Now, the corner part of that deck that you do see there, that is still in load. Unfortunately, you can see the crack coming down right about in here on the foundation wall. That's really not structural. If that fails, the deck fails. You know, the plinth blocks that are sitting on top of the wall, they're not attached to the wall. You know, they can move off. All you need is one person to hit something, maybe hit it with a 2x4 or some lumber that they're carrying around, whatever they hit it with. The supports fall, the deck falls. We make sure everything is structural. So we usually get stuff like that fixed. See the light through the basement wall? Right in the middle there? I can see the outside. That's also a structural failure in the wall. That's caused by ground pressure, water pressure. Years ago when they built houses, they did a lot of masonry walls. They didn't put rebar in them. They didn't core fill blocks. They just stacked them, put the house on top, and everything was good. Well, ground soils tend to really make havoc out of a lot of those type of houses. You got clay, you got silt, any expansion type soil. Sand is about the only good soil that really is fine with masonry block because it filters the water out fast and it doesn't build up pressure. But this house had clay in that area. That's exactly what it does when you don't have a wall that's properly supported or braced. It makes that big crack and it blows the wall in. That compromises the whole structural value of the house. we make sure that gets fixed. And there's many different fixes out there, from fiberglass mats to core filling them. You can break open the blocks, fish rebar in there and core fill it again and close it back up. There's like these claws that they have. They put a hole in the yard about 8 feet out, and they run a big rod out to that hole from the foundation, and it feeds a clamp that holds to the ground. Same thing to the wall, and they tighten it up little by little, and that pulls the wall back. There's so many fixes out there. It's amazing what's out there. And last but not least, this is kind of one of our biggest ones that we always see. And we're always trying to protect our water system. We're trying not to clean and take care of any more water than we have to. So we don't want people to run their sump pumps to their domestic water system, drainage system. Sump pump water is always supposed to go to the outside of the house. There's very rare circumstances that the city will allow you to run your sump pump into your house domestic drainage system. And those are a case-by-case basis based on groundwater levels, where it's built, and the city knows exactly where they are. They come out and assess it, and they'll make the determination. But for the most part, if you live outside of any lowland, swampland, or anything like that, you're going to run your water back outside where it belongs. So we try not to run it into the sump pump system, or into we try not to run the sump pump into our domestic water system. That's all the slides I have. Questions? Good time to start asking them, and want to know what you got. If you got any questions on the program itself, what we look for. Yes.
Going from the stairs to the basement, do you have to have handrails on each side?
Well, it's a building question, yes, but no, you don't have to have handrails on each side. One handrail is all that's required. So, if you've got one going down, I don't get concerned about the height of it, as long as you got a rail. We'll note if it's under the correct height for the code, 34 to 38 inches. That's the height that handrails are supposed to be installed at. If you got one in there for your little kids and you got one for yourself, I'm not going to say boo about it. I think that's great. At least you're getting the kids used to using a handrail.
Yeah, because I have an opening, one side they got a wall, but the other side it's kind of an opening. I don't know how they put it.
Well, how big of an opening? Does it go almost all the way up the stairs?
2/3 of the way.
A third of the way?
Well, it comes up to the floor level, the basement, it comes all the way up to the ceiling.
Yeah. Those would also be labeled as below minimum, because at this point now, what our code requires is you have to have a guardrail from any height on the stairs to the 30 inches and below. So from the floor, you measure up 30 inches, you get that freebie right there. 30 inches from the floor up to your stair. Anything at that level does not have to be guardrailed. Anything above that gets a guardrail. Any other questions?
How about exterior steps?
You mean like your side steps, front steps?
We have a walkout house, and we go from first floor level on the outside of the house. And I suppose it's
Half a story?
8 feet.
Okay. Again, we address that type of stuff too. If it's structural issues with it, you know, maybe it's a wooden step or something.
This would be an on-grade concrete step.
Oh, on grade? We really don't address that. It's part of a landscaping thing at that point, unless the steps themselves are part of the egress path to the house.
In this case, it's not an egress.
Well, we don't address it. Yes?
I have an attached garage, and a couple years back I had an insulated door installed, garage door installed, and I well, gee, I better insulate the rest of the garage. So I did. I insulated the garage and the ceiling, and I put plastic around it, plasticized it. I have not put any sheetrock up. Does it need to have sheetrock up or not?
Depends. Are you heating the garage?
No.
You just got basically you just got the insulation and plastic on it?
Yeah, and
It's a detached garage?
Yeah, the heat from the house is actually heating the garage is what's happening.
Detached garage?
No,
Or attached? Okay, so where the house is, the wall of the garage has got sheetrock on it, right?
It's got hardboard on it actually,
Hardboard?
or whatever. It's wood, some sort of.
Well, actually, sheetrock is a brand name. Gypsum. Gypsum, or you've got a sheathing on it at that point.
Some sort of sheeting, but it's not.
Technically, that portion, the portion of the wall of your garage that attaches to the house, has to have gypsum covering on it. The rest of it can stay open.
Yeah, it's got a covering on it that.
If you're talking foam insulation in there, then you got to cover it.
No, it's not foam.
Yeah.
Fiberglass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
We had half-inch drywall that's been there for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Was that code at that time?
Probably not, but for 40 years now there wasn't a code for that. So not 40 years ago.
Well, I guess it was 1965 when the house was built.
Yeah.
And so the garage's two walls are part of the house.
Yeah.
And
If you got half-inch gypsum on it,
yeah, and it's
you're good to go.
But it has to be 5/8 now.
No. 5/8 is only required where it's 24 on center framing, or it separates living space as well. So up above, if you have living space above your garage, that's got to be 5/8. You got a wall comprised of, on your house to your garage, 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch on the inside. And your framing's all centered in between that. That's a 1-hour assembly in itself.
So you don't have to put,
You don't have to put 5/8 on that. No.
or with a half-inch undercoat.
No, the 1/2 inch board. Both, you got it on your inside of your house,
Just a standard.
but you've also going to have it where it attaches at the garage, on the garage side.